I am Ankita Thakur, a student of second semester at Central Department of Economics, and I am honored to be your host for this session. Moving forward, I would like to welcome you all to this important session titled Climate Change in South Asia. Climate change in South Asia is a critical and timely theme given the region's unique vulnerabilities and significant impact on global climate patterns. In order to moderate this session, we have Dr. Nirmal Kumar Raut, Associate Professor at Central Department of Economics, Tuvan University. Dr. Raut's expertise in energy, resource, economics makes him the perfect guide for discussion today. I would like to invite our two distinguished presenters, Dr. Meghnath Dhimal and Dr. Manin Nepal, and our chair, Professor Dr. Shiva Raj Adhikari, Honorable Vice Chairman of National Planning Commission, Government of Nepal. I would like to request you all to give a big round of applause to all of them. Without any further delay, I would like to hand over this podium to Dr. Nirmal Kumar Raut to moderate this session further.
Thank you very much, Ankita. So I hope everyone is here, back from the lunch, right? So this is a post-launch session, right? A very kind of lousy and tiring session, I would say, right? Usually it happens. So thank you very much for providing this opportunity to moderate this very important session that is entitled Climate Change and South Asia. So I don't want to talk much about the theme itself because we already have distinguished researchers here on the dais, Dr. Manin Nepal and Dr. Meghnath Dhimal. So it's kind of, although we are talking about climate change in the South Asian context, but we already know that climate change, it has not only national or regional implications, it has kind of global implications, right? So the cost of inaction, right? The cost of inaction towards addressing the emerging issues of climate change, it's really huge, right? So not only for the present generations, but also for the future generations to come. So today, we'll hear more from our distinguished researchers. So it would be more like, I guess, academic than policy discourse, policy session. So before I invite our distinguished researchers to share their presentation, I would like to briefly introduce the speakers, the distinguished researchers to you, and as well as our chair of the session. So let me first, so I have a very long kind of write-up so I think that I can't read it all because it's really long and it would take more time. Anyway, so we have Dr. Manin Nepal. He is the lead economist at ICIMOD, and he leads a regional research network, SANDEE. He has a long history of working in academia, including distinguished visiting professor at Kyoto University, Japan. He's also an adjunct professor at Agriculture and Forestry University and visiting professor at Kathmandu University. Dr. Nepal worked at the Central Department of Economics, TU, SEDECON, who is also organizing this conference today and yesterday as well. He was an associate professor for several years, I guess almost like more than a decade, right? So 18 years, as you were talking about last day, right? On the SEDECON day, yeah, I recall that. So he was also a visiting assistant professor at the University of New Mexico, USA. He held a senior economics position at the Department of Finance and Administration, New Mexico. So there are lots of, accolades. So he has garnered over his, career. So he's a distinguished researcher, well-known kind of author and well-known expert in the area of, environmental economics. We all know that. So his presentation today will be focused on discussing the sustainability challenges in the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. So when we say Hindu Kush Himalayan region, it includes 8 countries, including South Asia. So Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, China, India, Nepal, Myanmar, and Pakistan. And he will also kind of delve into issues as to how our hunger of material wealth is challenging the very notion of right to live in a clean and green environment, not only for ourselves, but also for the generations to come. So he will also propose, evidence-based solutions to overcome such challenges. Let me move on to the introduction of our next guest speaker, Dr. Meghnath Dhimal. So he is an environmental health scientist with over 20 years of research, teaching, and policy formulation experience working in Nepal, Maldives, Timor-Leste, Sri Lanka, and Germany. His primary area of expertise is on environmental health with more focus on climate change and health. Currently, he works as a chief or senior research officer at the Nepal Health Research Council. He's also an associate academician at Nepal Academy of Science and Technology, which is also called NAST, and also a visiting faculty of environmental health at Tribhuvan University and Yale School of Public Health, Yale University, USA. He served as a contributing author of 6th assessment report of IPCC 2022, and also serving as a commissioner at the Lancet Commission on Sustainable Healthcare. He has published over 300 technical reports and peer-reviewed research articles in international peer-reviewed journals, including in the Lancet, BMJ, eLife, and Nature. So, oh my God. So his Google Scholar citation accounts for more than 54,000 citations. So can you imagine? So with H index 67. So his presentation today will cover climate change as a public health crisis, with focus on growing ethical crisis, state of climate change in South Asia, emerging evidence on climate change and health in South Asia, and finally, regional and national responses to address health risks of climate change in the region. So let me also briefly introduce to the chair of the session. I think that he needs no introduction, right? Honorable Professor Shiva Raj Adhikari. He is currently a vice chair of National Planning Commission. Earlier, he was a member of the National Planning Commission. So I rather would like to recall him as a professor at Tribhuvan University rather than vice chair of National Planning Commission. So I have a fond memory working under his headship at the Central Department of Economics, and proud to say that the SEDECON took newer heights during his tenure as a head of the department. Thank you very much, sir, for that. So he received his PhD in health economics from Chulalongkorn University. Did I pronounce it correctly? Chulalongkorn University, Thailand, and served at Tribhuvan University in various academic and administrative roles over 2 decades. He has published a number of peer-reviewed papers, mostly in the intersection of health and economics. So with that brief introduction, so finally, he's also a board member of ICIMOD, which is kind of the institution which is kind of a champion in the region to promote researches and encourage research in the areas of climate change, right? So he's also a board member of ICIMOD, wherein Professor Dr. Mani Nepal is right now working, I guess. So let me, with that introduction, so let us now hear from our guest speakers first. So the time allocation is something like this. So I think that we have like 1 hour and 20 minutes, I guess, something like that. So 2 presentations. The first presentation will be made by Dr. Mani Nepal, 25 minutes, sir. The second presentation by Dr. Meghnath Dhimal, 25 minutes for you as well, sir. Maximum 25 minutes. So you can finish it up, before 25 minutes, earlier than that. So it's up to you. Please try to do that. So, and then we'll go for a floor discussion, Q&A session for 20 minutes, and then finally, our chair, Honorable Professor Shiva Raj Adhikari will give his concluding remarks. So let us first hear the presentation from Dr. Mani Nepal. Thank you, sir. Please.
So what can I get the slides? Slides? No slides? Of course, yeah. Okay. So, but not here? Okay, all right. So can I also have the slides, please?
I thought it was all set.
Oh, okay. Yeah, delighted to be here. Thank you for having me. And so I will be talking about mountains, climate, and environmental change, and its implication in South Asia. So I don't have the control over slides. Let's see if that works. This one? Should this work? Okay. So this is a very brief outline of my presentation. So I'll talk about a little bit about the Hindu Kush Himalaya, where ICIMOD is working, which comprises 8 countries in the region, where what is happening in the climate and disasters, pollution-related issues. And I also will touch upon race to prosperity and questions of sustainability, how sustainable, okay. And also, I'll also talk about our progress and whether what we're doing are those progress sustainable. And if not, what can be done? Right? These are the issues that I will touch upon. So that's the beautiful place in the Kush Himalaya where we are situated. So it includes 8 countries in the region, but when you look at from the top, it looks like mass of ice, which is the largest ice mass outside the polar regions, and it is home to many things, including biodiversity, culture, water sources, all kinds of things. So it's one of the major world resources. So there are 10 major rivers coming out from the system. I said, there are like 250 million people in the mountain areas, and downstream this is a little bit old figure. So here you can see 1.65 billion, but I would say it's more than, if you combine all, it's about 2 billion people relying on the resources in the Kush Himalaya region. So these are some of the population areas, densely populated, both China and India, relying on the resources that comes out from the region. And also, it's the global hotspot for biodiversity. There are a lot of floras and faunas found. Still new species are found every year in the region. That's a good thing. But sadly, a lot of those biodiversity we are losing. Okay, so about 80% of the biodiversity has been lost over the past almost 100 years. Despite such global importance, the region hasn't been received much attention that it needs to be attended. So one of the like a thing that ICIMOD does is to actually bring the voices of the mountains to the global forum, so that the challenges that the region has been facing can be addressed. Okay, so, and this is very much known because of the climate change and other kind of changes, and the mountains, this young mountain fragile asset, and a lot of challenges that communities, not only the environmental issues, but also socioeconomic challenges, the region has been facing. So I want to say one thing: what is happening in the Kush Himalaya region? Why we are worried? The climate change is always there. So we're saying global temperature is going up, but the most important thing is the temperature rise in the mountain areas is much higher than the plain areas. If you look at the, I don't know where does it work? So the red actually numbers and the yellow highlight. So SK, those two numbers there, I don't have the pointers, it doesn't work, but you can see in the top, that's the Himalaya region, and the bottom is the other parts. If you look at the 1 century average, and every 10 years, a decade, what is happening in the temperature front? So when the temperature increases globally by 0.084%, degree centigrade, in the mountain area it is increased by 0.104. So there is a distinct difference between those two numbers. And if you look at the yellow highlights, when the global temperature increases by 1 to 9 degrees centigrade, in the mountain area it goes up by 0.195. It's a very stark difference, meaning mountains are, they're warming very faster, right? So what's the consequence of that? So basically, the first thing that we can think about is the impact on the water. So when you say climate change, its impact, if it is too warm, that means less snow. If there is less snow, and melting glaciers becomes very fast, and then that becomes too much water if it is melting very fast. Or climate change means less rainfall also sometimes, or it can be more rainfall also. So it's it depends, right? It's not like a less or more, but it's extreme basically, okay? So whether it's less or more, it is challenging because it can have a drought, it can have a floods, or landslides, all kinds of things. So, and ultimately, that water problem that we get actually links with a lot of other areas like energy, agriculture, biodiversity, tourism, and that actually impacts livelihoods of the people living in the region. So this is one snapshot of the mountain village. This is actually from the Ladakh, India. And if you see the village here, it looks green, but it solely depends on the snow melt there. If there is no snow, the life won't be possible there. Okay, so that's the challenge. If you look at the disasters, what is happening globally, there are two major one is related to floods, and the other one is extreme weather. Those two make actually large chunk of disasters globally, and it is going up after 2000, little bit of leveled off, but still there's a problem. And if you look at the human casualty death because of those disasters, what we can see globally is it is actually decreasing, right? So the balls, it shows the number of people died because of different types of disasters. And extreme temperature is picking up right there, below there, you can see, but others are a little bit down. But this is basically giving a very wrong message to us, because if you disaggregate that and look at the mountain areas, the Kush Himalaya region, the story is different. The graph actually tells you what is happening in terms of number of events, number of people that are dead because of those disasters, and also how many people got affected, and what is the economic loss. Everything is actually trending up. Okay, so sometimes global figure actually doesn't give the right picture for us. So we need to disaggregate at the regional level. So in terms of air pollution, we all know that what happens after November, currently it is good, right? When I talk about today, you might be telling, oh, what the nonsense is this? But come November, you will see what happens to our cities and villages and all kinds of things. And Pokhara should be like that, but it becomes like this. And when your economy is relying on tourism, and people cannot see, tourists cannot see the mountains, and what kind of message they take home, right? So that is a big challenge that we're facing. And other sources of air pollution, like industrial, like cement production, brick production, agriculture is another source. Transportation is another major challenge for us. Not just the burning fossil fuel, but the roadside dust is also one of the short-lived pollutant that we're facing. And also we are relying on biomass burning when we cook our meal most of the time in the villages. So that is another challenge. And I think the next session is relying on basically on the health issue, so I don't want to talk much on this. So I'll move on this. So let's look at why we're worried about the pollution, right? And look at the concentration of the pollution. South Asia actually is the most darker. That means more pollution in this region, right? And why it is a problem? Because air pollution is the third largest killer globally. About 7 million people annually die because of the air pollution. That's why it is very, challenging issue. And where those deaths are concentrated, look at our region, this South Asia. The darker is, the more deaths, okay? So message is very clear there. And there are other forms of pollution, like water pollution, plastic pollution, marine pollution, air pollution. These all are the challenging issues for us. And actually, just for an example, a few years back, we did a research on how much pesticides farmers are actually using for their agriculture. And that study found about more than 4 times recommended doses farmers are applying pesticides in vegetables. That means we're ingesting pesticides, right? When you eat vegetables and they are overdosed with the pesticides, and what happens to human health? And that's the reason there are a lot of health challenges. Again, the next session will be there on that. Another one is the plastic pollution, which is another challenge. And we did one study whether ban can help to reduce plastic pollution. And the answer is no, because when you ban something, it should be enforced with significant penalty. If, let's say, you ban plastics, that's what we're doing in our cities. In Kathmandu, in theory, plastic is banned. But if you go outside, everybody's carrying plastic bags. Because, why is that? Because there is no enforcement. Nobody's penalized, okay? So there should be enforcement, detection, and the penalties should also be significant. Otherwise, those the regulations won't work. And if you look at the plastic problem, again, South Asia comes in the forefront. So that's the bad thing. But the good thing is, see, the world population is going up. And the GDP is also going up. Not only GDP, per capita GDP is going up. So we should be very happy because, everything looks very, very good here. But look at the global temperature. The average temperature is going up after 1950, more or less, right? And then if you look at the biodiversity, what is happening? Biodiversity is a thing that we actually rely on. Without biodiversity, life is not possible. And the biodiversity reduction is very, very alarming. From 1970 to 2018, about, I would say, 70% of the biodiversity is gone in that short span of time, which is very, very, very alarming, okay? And the impact of climate change in different crops. The maize is the main crop that gets very affected. But wheat, sometimes, if you look at the global number, wheat is getting benefited from the climate change. Rice has certain, depending on where you are. For example, in South Asia, we did research in Nepal and India, and about 4 to 10% reduction in rice yield because of, the climate change. And migration, why we're worried about, the climate change, not only reduction in agricultural production, but also how people actually move from the areas where there are higher temperature to other areas, right? So there's certain research in the region. These are very large-scale countries level using census data, and all 3 countries actually showing that, because of climate change, people are moving away from the hotter areas. And why that is a problem? Because when you migrate, there is a feedback loop. Agriculture actually gets affected. And if you look at Nepal, when people are moving outside from the villages, the land is kept fallow now. There are about 40% households are saying their land is fallow in the areas. That means that will have implications on the food security, all kinds of issues. And also, sometimes we say, this can be adapted, the climate change, adaptation, mitigation, all kinds of things. And we did several studies in the region, and there are two examples. And if we look at the actual, and how people are perceiving climate change versus what they are doing. So the adaptation farmers are doing is not basically based on what is happening in the climate. They are actually performing based on the market indicators. If price is high, they switch their crop. It's not because climate is changing. That means the education that we want to, give to the farmers is not enough. They are not still understanding what is happening, right? And one of the ways to adapt climate change is rainwater harvesting in our country, where rainfall is in 4 or 5 months. In summer, rest is like a dry season. So if you can harvest rainwater during summer, it is more beneficial, and our study actually shows that. But very less people are actually adapting those rainwater harvesting. And because it actually takes about 30% of their annual income to construct those water tanks, meaning they need a lot of financial support from our planning, from our government. And we also look at whether information can help farmers to adapt to climate change, or changing their cropping pattern, using different types of varieties, or using risks, mitigating, applying pesticides so that they can get better yield. And this study was done in Pakistan, but the gist is actually farmers who receive information versus farmers who did not receive information, no change. Because the quality of the information was not reliable. Farmers actually didn't trust the information that government is giving, right? So it should be reliable, not just the information, but quality, trustable information is also needed if you want to make any difference. So with all this, so what's wrong with our socioeconomic and natural system? Everything is going up, GDP is going up, everything, biodiversity is going down. So the question is, are we making good progress? And our SDGs, everybody is trying to meet. Are those sustainable, right? Let's look at, for a moment, when you learn economics, the basic, what do you call it? The circular flow of the economy, right? That's the basic model that economists actually learn. So what you do is, we think about households, we think about the firm, and the households provides, means, the inputs, and the firms utilize those and produce goods and services, and they exchange each other, and the economy goes around, right? What we are not putting in our basic models in economics when we teach is the role of the resource, the biosphere, the natural resources are not accounted for in our models. We're not teaching our students and the future economists the value of the natural resources, right? And also the waste and pollution that is going to the environment, that is not accounted for, okay? The externalities that we generate is not accounted for. That's why resources are overexploited. And we are polluting environment a lot because there's no price. We are not putting, there's no cost for doing that, right? And look at the Bagmati River. I don't have to give you more examples. And I have one example here about the cement trade in Nepal. So what we're doing is, we're thinking Nepal is a very good country that can export cement. And government is actually promoting this business, giving tax subsidy, export subsidy, all kind of things. My question is it a good way to promote industry? Is it a good industry to support? Is it environmental friendly? Because the resource that we extract is non-renewable. It is highly polluting. And why on earth we are actually supporting this industry, giving subsidy instead of taxing them? Meaning the price that cement has in the market is it does not equate with the social cost. Social cost is much, much, much higher than the market price, right? So everybody's bearing the cost, but few people actually can get the profit for exporting that. So we need to think very carefully whether our business model is the good one. So as I said earlier, in our economic model, if you look at the Cobb-Douglas function, production function, what are the inputs that you're using? Labor capital. What is the natural resource? Non-existent. And you expect something good to happen, but you don't teach economics the way it should be taught, right? So that's the problem. We need to change the grammar of our economic. We need to change the model. We need to change how it should be taught if you want to change the, address these issues. And if you look at what is happening to natural capital, what is happening to human capital and British capital, and the message is clear. So natural capital is going down. And without natural capital, it's not possible to make progress. There are limits to growth. This is my, I think, almost last. I just want to leave with one analogy here. So what we're doing is, the bottom here is, let's think about, a water tank. And here we're putting water, that is how much resources is regenerated from the biosphere. This is the capacity of the biosphere. That means our natural system that can regenerate annually. And the bottom is how much we're extracting. We're extracting much more than what can be generated or regenerated. Meaning, we're depleting so fast. That's why the biodiversity curve was like, going down, okay? And how bad it is. So actually, there was an estimation, and the estimate actually shows that. So what we're doing is, we are actually extracting 1.7 times more than what the system actually regenerates sustainably. Meaning, we're already extracting 70% more of the resources than it should be. But unfortunately, we have only one Earth. We don't have the 1.7 Earth. Right? What does it mean? That means the sustainable development that we're talking, how can it be sustainable if the system itself is not sustainable? So we need to think very carefully whether those, whatever goal we are, I'm almost done. I think this is my last slide. So how we can actually address these challenges? Basically, so little thing, right? If everybody does little things, that helps. I'll give you one example. We're using plastic, this name tag here. Do we really need plastic name tag with a plastic string? And what happens to plastic string from tomorrow? It's useless, right? It goes to the dustbin. So can the organizer actually think about not to use these things? There are like hard, the paper things that you can actually use it for 2 days. You don't need it's not for 5 years, it's a 2 days workshop. So small thing actually matters. I'm just giving one example. Think about whether you are using resources is actually necessary or not. If not necessary, we should be able to avoid it, okay? So reducing waste, that was just one example. And minimizing harm to the nature, okay? And also conserve nature rather than degrade it, if possible, and everybody can do it. Because, the global negotiations are failed, actually. Every year there will be COP and other things, but no outcome. So, but if citizens can think about very carefully, and they can actually make the difference, and we can start. Okay? So restoring degraded, landscapes or forests or lakes or rivers, that helps. And also encouraging the role of large-scale spatial planning and multi-use landscapes. And basically using the nature-based solutions, maybe another approach. And the last thing is integrating nature into development plans. So that's what we need to actually think about. Whether we really need modern big infrastructure versus something that can be blended with the natural approach. And the last thing is very important is apply pay as you use. Meaning the price should be right for the resources. I gave you example of the cement. That's underpriced. That's why we got too much pollution. Bricks, underpriced, right? We have to include all the social costs in that one. How much is the externalities? If it can be built in the price system, and the people start looking for the alternatives, an alternative might be better. So with that, I'd like to end my talk here. Thank you very much, and I would be happy to respond if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manisha, for your presentation. That was really insightful and touching upon various aspects of climate change, particularly the impacts that it is likely to have on livelihood, in economic and social impact, as well as psychological impact, I guess. And he kind of proposed some broad suggestions as to how we can address those challenges. So I recall your one slide about the cement trade, right? So that is quite an irony, right? So whether government is serious or not, right? So it raises a question. On the one hand, it is kind of promoting, the cement industry, which is the largest polluter, right, of all the industries. And on the other hand, the government, kind of saying that, it is also serious towards addressing the issues of climate change. So that's quite an irony. So I think that you have lots of questions. So we'll put those questions in the Q&A session after we hear from Dr. Meghnath Dhimal. So with that small note, I would like to invite Dr. Meghnath Dhimal for his presentation. Thank you. Sir, you have 25 minutes time.
Respected Chair of the sessions, Professor Dr. Shiva Raj Adhikari, Honorable Vice Chair of National Planning Commissions, fellow colleagues in the dais, all the seniors in these rooms, it's my really great pleasure to be here and to share my knowledge and experience. First of all, I am very much thankful to the organizer for this invitation and opportunity. So today I'll just talk about the climate change is a public health crisis, some evidences from South Asia, because most of my work are related to the South Asia, and I also teach in university about this course, Climate Change and Health in South Asia. So today I'll just give 4 streamline. First, why climate change is a public health crisis, and why it is an equity issue. Second, I'll talk a little bit about state of climate in South Asia, but my colleague Dr. Nepal has already highlighted all the situation of climate in Hindu Kush Himalaya region, and it's almost same, so I don't need to go in detail there. Then I'll talk about the emerging issue on climate change and health in South Asia. And finally, I'll just also talk the solution things, how these countries of South Asia are addressing the emerging health risks from climate change. So through the health sector response to address impact of climate change in South Asia. So in the past, we treated the climate change as an issue of just environment sectors or meteorologists, climatologists. It was just last year in conference of party in Dubai, first Health Day was celebrated. Otherwise, it was only an annex of the negotiations, because now every country recognizes, yes, it is a public health crisis, because it has a huge impact not on the physical health, mental health, but also to our physical structure, health facilities, right? And the impact are not only in the infectious disease, but also on mental health, also on non-communicable disease, also on migrations. There is a huge impact, right? And there are several pathways of the climate change and health risks. First is definitely through the vulnerability factor like the socioeconomic status, demographic factors, and others. And there are also exposure factors like the extreme, too much water, too little water, extreme heat, and so many others. And next important is the health system capacity and resilience. It depends on the health system capacity and resilience, like whether we have a climate transparency leadership or governance and not. whether we have a sustainable climate and health financing or not, whether we have a climate-smart health workforce or not. For example, still in our university, I also studied in Tribhuvan University, most of our textbook mention that, okay, tropical diseases are found below 1,000 meters. Our vector-borne disease control program are confined there. But you know, these diseases do not know the boundary. They are already in the above 2,000 meters. And our medical doctor goes to the mountain region, we don't have the lab facility there, and they never diagnose. But you know, now we have a challenge of malaria inhibition, dengue control in the mountain, not in the lowland. So, means we need a climate-smart health workforce. That means through the refresher training or through improvement in the curriculum of the university. And there are several factors, I will not go in detail, but one of the factors is that our health facilities itself are at the risks. Because if we see our health facilities, either they are in the bank of river or in the top of mountain or hill. And these both are at risk of climate-induced disaster because of the landslide or the flood. So if the health facility first, sit with the, flood, how can we provide the health services? So this is the challenge. And WHO has estimated that between 2030 to 50, 250,000 additional deaths will occur every year just because of the climate change. And most of these deaths will be from malaria or undernutrition or the extreme weather events. And where does this occur? Means most of these are in the global south or in low and middle income country. And last year, the Lancet Countdown report came, and it concludes that 2023 was the hottest year. But already 2024 is the hottest year. And if the temperature increased by 2 degrees centigrade by mid of 21st century, then the heat-related mortality would be increased by 370%. And labor productivity lost by 50%. Dengue epidemic will be increased by 37%. And almost 525 million people will be at risk of the food security. Means there will be the huge impact. In the same time, usually we separate the climate change and air pollutions. And if you see the climate change, this is also one of the major killers. Every year, 7 million people die because of the air pollution. That combined ambient air pollution and indoor air pollutions. And just in South Asia, 4 million people die out of 7 million. In India alone, 2 million people die. And the economic cost is like 95 billion US dollar only in India. Similar cost is estimated for Nepal too. And every year in Nepal, 42,000 people die just because of air pollutions. The good news is that over the years, our household air pollution has declined. That's good news from energy sectors. The bad news is that ambient pollution has increased. So the total effect is, of the total death, 20.5% death occur just because of the air pollutions. 11.3% from household air pollutions, and rest from the ambient air pollutions. But though these are the two sides of a coin, but they are taken separately. But if we can address the climate change and health together, there will be the huge health co-benefits. Right? So we need to work together for the mitigation of greenhouse gases, mitigation of the air pollution. That means double benefit to the health and also to economy. This is more ethical crisis. This is a bit old data, but it's still quite okay. If you see the cumulative emission of the greenhouse gases, majority of the gases come from the global north or developed country. Now the figure has been changed because of China and India. But if we see still the WHO estimate of the per capita mortality from climate change, majority occur in the global south. So some are the emitter, other are the victims. So in this way, this is a growing ethical crisis that need to be addressed from the equity lens. Next, if you see the publications on climate change by countries, most of the publications on the climate change come from the global north. And there are very limited studies in the global south. And the absence of evidence should not be the excuse for planning. Right? So this is another equity issue. Next, Definitely we have to do the international collaborative publication on climate change and health. But if you see a scenario, most of the collaborative publications occur between global north and north. There is a very limited collaboration between global south and south. So option is definitely global south and north and south-south. So we need to enhance our capacity through the collaborative actions. This is a very old article I wrote to the Lancet in 2008. What are the challenges of climate change and health research in a mountainous country like Nepal? And I documented a few points at that time, like limited public awareness. I think that was true at that time, because very few people talk about the climate change and health. Inadequate number of trained human resources. At that time, if you just ask someone about the climate change and health, there was no one to guide. Least political priority, focus on the national policy. At that time, there was not a single word about climate change in our national policy, because climate change policy came in 2011 only. And low financial capacity and weak methodological approach in research and lack of coordination. But after publishing this paper, I did not get a congratulation, I get a threat. Because it's an insult of the government. You have to retract this paper. But I did not. But today it's a reality, because that was a baseline. Now we have a bit improvement in the work that we can compare now. So sometimes we get also challenged. And at that time, we were developing the National Adaptation Program for Action to Climate Change in Napa in Ministry of Environment at that time. And I used to talk about climate change may increase the threat of malaria elimination in this country. And the people say that he's a mad person, because how the mosquito can survive in the mountain region or the Himalaya. But now today is the reality. Now let me go back to the state of the climate in South Asia. So now everyone agrees that climate change is a public health crisis, and WHO has filed a case to declare the climate change as an international public health emergency, like the COVID. Because for the COVID, we got a vaccine, now we can see each other. But for the climate change, there is no vaccines. And even if you cut all the greenhouse gases right now to the zero level, there will be the impact in next 1,000 years because of the cumulative impact. And residual lifetime of the carbon is very long. So in the South Asia, there are several countries in South Asia, 8 countries. I don't want to go in detail because of the time. But the temperature rise is almost double than the global average. Similarly, the projected temperature is also very high. And this is the reason which start from the sea, like Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, and others, and up to the Mount Everest. So this is the risk for both countries, for the sea level rise as well as for the glacial lake outburst flood in the mountain. For precipitation, similar pattern. There is a decreasing trend of the South Asian monsoons, precipitation, the second half of the 21st century, but continuous shift towards a drier condition observed since the early 1980s in spring over the central Himalayas. And large precipitation increase in the annual precipitations, but the rainfall pattern is very erratic, no regular pattern. So the issue comes for the too much water and too little water, and which cause the climate-induced disaster like landslide and flood in these regions. And the projected temperature also show the very unexpected trend. So what are the emerging evidences coming from this region? Like the temperature are rising 2 times faster in South Asia than the global average. Heat waves and the humidity stress will be more intense and frequent in South Asia this century. And last 3-4 years, every year, South Asia region is suffering from the heat wave, deadly heat waves. And many people die, but unfortunately, there is no record. Because in many health systems, this is still not recognized and not reported. So underreporting is very high. And occurrence of extreme heat waves and the flood is very likely to increase. As a result, frequency and intensity of the glacial lake outburst floods are likely to increase. And even we have observed 2-3 this year. So such event will be likely to increase more in futures. So just one example of these Thame disasters, glacial lake outburst. So not only this is a disaster, this is a disaster to the health, because health was itself damaged. No road were damaged. That means there is no access to the health facility means we cannot ensure the continuous service delivery, right? And more, South Asian region have the poor communities, one of the poor region among the all regions, but least contributions in the greenhouse gases, but one of the most vulnerable region in terms of the impact of the climate change. As a result, climate change poses the major challenge to the environmental stability, economic growth, and the human development in South Asia. And next is we are also suffering from the polycrisis, and the political instability or instability on this region is another threat for ensuring the environmental sustainability and climate actions. So what are the next other impact? Climate change is also causing increasing vector-borne disease and water-borne disease, undernutrition, mental disorder, and allergy-related issue in South Asia. For example, in Nepal, we reported first case of dengue in 2004. But since last 3 years, we are reporting more than 50,000 cases, hundreds of deaths, and these all are again tips of iceberg because 80% like dengue cases are asymptomatic. They are not reported, are not recorded. And causing the additional healthcare costs, loss of labor productivity, and economic losses through the damage caused by the climate-related extreme events. And South Asian countries are responding to climate change through both mitigation and adaptation, and how I'll go a little bit late. Next is occurrence of extreme heat waves very likely to increase, and a sizable part of South Asia will experience the heat stress conditions. And even in Nepal, we have done some studies which clearly show the trend of the heat wave in this Nepal, even in the mountainous country. And in Bangladesh, around 18 million people living in the coastal area will lose their homes if the sea level rise by 1 meter. And it is most likely to be happen. So I will talk about the heat waves, glacial lake outburst flood, and the Hindu Coast Himalaya region, which is the water tower for Asia. And 3 billion people rely on this water tower, but are likely to be affected because of the climate change. And all our hydropower will be also impacted just because of this climate change. Because now maybe the more flow, but in futures it will be highly affected. And in the past there were no evidence from the South Asia. And if you see the 2007 report of IPCC, which also received the Nobel Prize, Dr. Rajendra Pachauri and team. And it is clearly mentioned that Hindu Kush Himalaya is the hot spot in terms of evidence. But now, more and more findings are being reflected in the IPCC report, that is Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report. Myself was one contributing author in some chapters, and many Nepali scientists are their authors. That's the good news. Number of Nepali scientists who are included the author in IPCC report are many, and also evidence are coming. Like it has clearly now spelled out climate change is impacting to the vector-borne disease in the mountainous country like Nepal. Just one example of the dengue. First case was imported case, Japanese traveler to Nepal in 2004. 2006 we had the outbreak, 32 cases from 9 districts. But now, all the 76 districts, irrespective of the hill, terrain, mountain, report the cases, and more than 50,000 cases each year. And there are two major changes I have observed. First thing, there is a rapid geographical expansion of the disease vector as a case. And second is, there is a, increasing the seasonality. That means not anymore seasonal, they are the perennial disease now. Throughout the year, we report the even dengue cases in Kathmandu. And we compared such study with the other country, and we all did a systematic review, which clearly show that climate change is associated with the expansion of disease and disease vector in the Hindu Kush Himalayan regions. Similarly, for the diarrhea, there are several studies which show the link, and we did studies in Nepal which clearly show that for 1 degree centigrade increase in ambient temperature, diarrheal cases increase by 4.4%. And this is much higher in the mountain regions, like Western Mountain, 5.05%. Similar findings are observed from the Bangladesh. For 1 degree centigrade rise in the maximum temperature, increase the diarrhea hospitalization by 4.6%. And there are also, interesting relationship between the climate change and the intimate partner violence. I will not go in detail. Similarly, there are the implications of the climate change and air pollution for reproductive, maternal, and child health. And as a response, Nepal was a signatory country of United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change in 1992. Then several activity has been done. Even we have a NAP, National Adaptation Plan, which is the which costs for the implementation, the estimated cost is $47.4 billion US. And similarly, we have developed the Health National Adaptation Plan. It's the second one. It's a 7.3 million for next 7 years. But the problem here is that many developed and donor countries support for developing the program or plan, but for implementation, we don't have the money. And there are the several funds, like the Green Climate Funds, but we cannot simply get the money. We have to write a good proposal, and we have a very limited technical capacity. That's another challenge. And actually, if you see the political commitment, I'll say there is a high-level political commitment. Like before the COP in Copenhagen, Maldives organized the cabinet meeting below the sea level rise to draw the international attention that, small island developing country are at risk of the sea level rise. And the Nepal organized the cabinet meeting in the base camp, Kalapathar, in 2009, right? So in this way, Nepal raised the issue of the mountain agenda. Like mountainous countries are at the risk of the glacial lake outburst flood. And in COP28 in Dubai, I just told earlier, means it was the first conference of the party which actually accepted the health agenda, celebrated the World Health Day. More than 50 health ministers were there, and 2.4% delegates of total 85,000 delegates were from health professionals. And partner, or let's say developed country, a donor agreed that there will be the $1 billion US commitment dedicated to climate and health. And now the WHO is the secretary of this, and we have the ETAs. And I'm one of the advisors for them, and I think we are working now for more capacity building, but still need to work more and more for more financial flow and capacity building. And in health sector, this is not a new issue. Actually, first time in 2007, we organized the first workshop on climate change and health, inviting all the stakeholders with the concept of health in all policies. And we have to go beyond health sector, right? And then we did several activities. Even in the NAPA of Nepal 2004, Nepal was the first country in South Asia which included health in the National Adaptation Program of Action to Climate Change. And then we did several activities, and recent, our progress is we have a now costed action plan, Health National Adaptation Plan. And I also got an opportunity to develop this action plan as a team leader. And recently we organized the Climate and Health Conference. So every 5 years we are also organizing the Climate and Health Conference to bring all the sector together and to raise the issue of climate change. That means only health sector cannot do. It should be contributed by the waste sector, energy sector, biodiversity, because we all are suffering from triple planetary crisis. That means biodiversity loss, pollution, and climate change. So these are some pictures of this SNAP development. So how the other countries of South Asia are, addressing the risks of the climate change in South Asia? First, they are including the health in NAPA and the NAP. NAPA means National Adaptation Program of Action, just for the, most urgent and immediate action, while is NAP, National Adaptation Plan, is for the mid and long-term actions. Also prioritizing the health in NDC. NDC means National Determined Contributions. That means it commit both mitigation as well as adaptations. And next, including the health in climate change policy as well as including the climate change in health policy. For example, if you see the climate change policy 2011 or 2019, it has a commitment 80% adaptation fund will go to the community. And periodic climate change and health vulnerability and adaptation assessment, and also developing the SNAP and its implementations. So what will be the enable for the effective climate actions? Means first we need the political commitment. That is very important. Second is that we need the inclusive governance. For example, impact of the climate change are not gender neutral. It should be from the gender lens. It should be inclusive in terms of indigenous people and others, right? And we must work closely with the international cooperation because we are the vulnerable, but after just trying, we will not get the money. Means we need a good international cooperation, and science diplomacy is also very important in this context. And another important point is the effective ecosystem stewardship. Means Means only human health cannot work. Means we have to work in a partnership, like One Health approach or a planetary approach. And finally, sharing of the diverse knowledge is very important. Like economists have their unique knowledge, let's say health experts have their unique knowledge. When we bring together, then we really get the cost-effective measures, cost-efficient measures, right? Thank you so much for your time and patience.
Thank you so much, sir, for finishing earlier than the scheduled 25 minutes time. Again, another great presentation. So he focused on how climate change is impacting on health. So big picture was presented by Dr. Mani Nepal, and now we see how, the complication, right? The complexity of this climate change dynamics is really, really, big, right? And it's challenging. So I don't know, like you call it ethical crisis, right? So is it a human crisis or something like that? Ethical crisis, does it like resonates with human crisis, or is something different? It's much more like serious than human crisis, I would say, right? Ethical crisis, something that is to do with the moral of the person. So I think that we are done with the two presentations. So now let me open the floor for the Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please try to make it short and try to identify yourself as well, in short as well. Thank you. Can somebody pass on the mic to the gentleman?
Good evening to all. Both the sessions in this focal theme is very insightful. I hope it is eye-opening session for everyone. It is unique topics, both are presented. But I'm sorry to raise a question or a clarification, not directly related to both of your presentation, but it is directly related to our conference theme. That you are mentioning that at the final stage for climate action, when we are entering into the stringent or very critical climate action, some of the experts all over the globe, they are saying that the climate change, the word, the phrase, which underestimate the emergency or the catastrophe of the issue. Climate change is a big issue. Of course, the people, those who are assembling here, are those who could able to understand the danger of climate change, could able to understand. But in general, the climate change phrase is very, very simple, like weather change. So why we have to change this phrase, and we have to pronounce a very, very critical, suitable phrase for climate change. The Amitav Ghosh, one of the famous writer in India, novelist, he has suggested some topics, and also I add that instead of using climate change, we can use planetary crisis that maybe reach the hearts of the people, planetary crisis, or ecological breakdown, or environmental catastrophe, or global meltdown, or the climate emergency. These kinds of words can be suitable. In my perception, the planetary crisis can be, or maybe a suitable phrase for this issue. When we are speaking about a global issue, we have to use a suitable phrase for sending the message into everyone's hearts of the universe. What is the experts' opinion on this changing the phrase of climate change instead of climate change to use alternative, some suitable phrases? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that was more of a suggestion, right? Okay, let's get another other comments, questions. So, can
Hello, good afternoon. This is my queries to Dr. Mani. Since he has spoken about the socioeconomic implication as well, so I would like to put my queries that due to the climate change, especially in mountains, the glacier melt and the erratic weather patterns, how the livelihood of the mountain community is affected. Is it confined to only in agriculture sector or in their livelihood as well? How it affects? So one thing. And the another query is concerned about the gender and vulnerability. How the women or the marginalized groups or communities directly affected by climate change or any natural disaster. So I think you need to give a short illustration about those things also, because it's a highly, adverse effect. If we look at the socio-economic implication we come across. And finally, one more thing I would like to add here. Is there any government policies or technological interventions such as early warming system or climate smart agriculture that can mitigate, that can mitigate the socio-economic impacts of the climate change in South Asia, especially in mountain regions, and maybe even the cross-border issues also, since many mountain regions in South Asia are transboundary, and how do they manage the regional or the political tensions effect as well while doing so. I think these things also can come across while you talk about the socio-economic implications, because those sectors are, I think, very much affected with these things. Thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Madhavi Singh Saha, and by profession, I am a professor of economics. Thank you.
what do you want to do? Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. So when I say socioeconomic change, and I gave few representative examples, doesn't mean that the impact is only one agriculture, right? So the impact is on in the farming communities, the herders, our the rangelands are getting the productivity of the rangeland in the high altitude is going down. And people, the herders are actually leaving their profession, right? There are other socioeconomic issues also, not just climate change, but because of climate change, the temperature is increasing, and the whole ecosystem has been changing in the areas. So there has been a lot of studies on that. What is happening in the rangeland, what is happening in agriculture, what is happening in the health, a lot of examples you have heard. So it's not limited to agriculture, right? So let's not, assume that climate change is just on agriculture. Of course, agriculture is the largest sector because there are a lot of people relying on agriculture, but there are other areas that are affected by climate change. Related to gender, minorities, all kind of things. I want to give you one example. For example, let's say due to extreme events, we have a lot of flooding in Kathmandu Valley. And who got affected the most? People living in the river corridors. And who are those people? The settlements where we have people who don't have the permanent residence. So of course they are the poor, vulnerable, minority, all kind of things. And that is just the representative. It is true for every major city in the region, right? So if you look at the land price will be cheaper when there is a lowland, waterlogging areas. And poor people will want to buy land. Where do they get? There, because that's cheaper. And what happens when there is extreme events like this year? And they get affected first. So the message is very clear. Who gets more affected, right? The other one is government policies and programs. I would like to hand over that question to our Vice Chair of the National Planning Commission, and he'll respond to that question. Yeah, thank you. And related to the climate crisis, I think that these days people are not just saying climate crisis, climate change. There is a terminology called triple planetary crisis. It's not just climate. Climate, biodiversity, and pollution. That's why I put all those three things here. I didn't use that term because the theme is not like a triple planetary crisis or biodiversity problem, but it has been there in the global arena, and it has been used in many forums. Okay, so triple planetary crisis. Everything is everything.
So I think the question raised by Madhavi ma'am, you could touch upon that later when you do the concluding remarks, sir, Honorable Vice Chair. So you can touch upon that when you want to do right now? Later, okay. During your concluding remarks. So yeah, so other questions, comments? Sohan sir.
My query is to Dr. Meghnath Dhimal ji. Just simple, so not complicated. Can you highlight lessons learned from public health initiatives in South Asia that have successfully addressed climate change-related health challenges? One. And second one is, how can community-based approaches improve resilience and health outcomes in the face of climate change in South Asia?
Want to respond?
I'm sorry, but I may not understand the question correctly, but if I understood correctly, so climate change effect to the communicable disease and the mechanism is clear. How it affects to non-communicable disease, is it your question or a bit different?
Sorry, once again. I'm Son Kumarkar, retired professor and head, Central Department of Economics. I just ask you, can you highlight lessons learned from public health initiatives in South Asia that have successfully addressed climate change-related health challenges? Simple, my query. And second one is, how can community-based approaches, that is very, very important, improve resilience and health outcomes in the face of health climate change in South Asia?
Thank you so much. So there are several initiatives. So actually in the broader context, we say climate resilient and low carbon health systems. And for this, we have to make an investment in the 6 building blocks of health systems, and there are 10 components. So one of the major thing here is that, we have to strengthen our health systems. For example, in the mountain, let's say if there is a single case of diarrhea or cholera or the dengue, if timely detected, timely treated, no problem. But problem here is that we cannot diagnose timely. And it takes a form of like outbreak or epidemic, then only the government know, right? So first thing is we have to strengthen our health systems. And second, for the community like in Nepal, Nepalgans, I just read a study, they have already started the heat action plan for the heat waves. And they have constructed the water ATMs. They place the different water dispenser, and when people have, even the poor people, they can take free of cost. So in this way, we can at least reduce the dehydrations. Means we can do many things. Similarly, for the dengue, we can make advanced, predictions, and then we can develop the early warning. Okay, dengue is coming, let's say, after 15 days or 1 month. So this could be the precautionary measure, right? So there are the several initiatives and ways to do developing the resilient health system for protecting the population health. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for the response. I think Sanjay sir was. I'll come back to you.
Okay, thank you, sir. I would like to thank both of the presenters for the very wonderful presentations you made. My question is to Dr. Mani Nepal, if you have additional information regarding the trend of global temperature rise that United Nations has warned. We would like to limit the rise of temperature by 1.5 degrees Celsius by the turn of this century, but it is not likely to happen, but it may cross around 2 degrees Celsius. And UNFCCC has tried its best to channel the global fund through Green Climate Fund in the region of poor countries of Asia, Africa, and Latin America in the context of productivity decline of agricultural activities and the emergence of food crisis in the region. How the United Nations in general and UNFCCC in particular is trying to limit the impact of the global temperature rise and its consequences to the food crisis in the developing world. If you have some additional information in this regard, I would be grateful. Thank you.
Presentation was very good, and I'm delighted to hear such a great presentation, very much informative as well. I have a direct question, actually, with Dr. Dhimal. You made the reference of climate change policy 2019 and also NDC 2020, and also, of course, NAPA. So, two questions. One specific question is, how much health is integrated in NAPA? First question. Second question, I think you mentioned that we lack the capacity for developing proposal to get the fund from outside. And that, I noticed that I think out of 48, 49 billion, which is the estimate for implementation of the NAPA, I think the government is just contributing less than 2 billion. So that means we have to rely on the outside. But if you don't have capacity, then how we can get the fund? And what is the implementation status of NAPA in relation to health? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Actually, we developed the NAPA, NAP, CAPA, LAPA, so many documents. So my mainly broad comments is that, we developed the document, but the funding gap is there. But the good news is that, at least for the health, we secured the different funding, like from Global Environment Facility, we got $15 million for 6 countries, and now still Nepal is working. We got several multilateral grants. Even now, the 12 countries are writing the proposal for $64 million for the Green Climate Fund. Nepal is one of them. So means in this way, we are making our, our efforts. The bad thing is that we have a climate and budget code. Our Honorable Vice Chairperson is here of the National Planning Commission. But health sector never asks the money for climate change. The reason behind is that the fiscal case for the health means otherwise the ceiling, very low, like the 4-5% budget. And they are, just making like traditional approach, means all the ongoing activity or something, right? So not new concept coming, right? And within the health system also, because of the human resource and other thing, that is also another challenge, because there is not a dedicated person to work on the climate and health sector, right? So these are the challenges. Despite this, globally, 0.5% of the adaptation fund goes to the health sectors. But at least in Nepal, we have more progress, I'll say. Despite this small country, we are enhancing our capacity and we are trapping the more in global resources. So I'll say we don't have capacity. I'll say we need to improve and enhance our capacity to, bring more and more international adaptation fund from loss and damage to the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I would like to congratulate both the speakers who have been pretty much informative. I don't have any question. I simply have small comment. This comment is also directed to the forthcoming up-and-coming young health economists and up-and-coming environmental economists who would be interested to do field work. To begin with, as Dr. Mani Nepal said in the very beginning, that we have not been doing any exercise on including Earth's value into the system of national accounts. Unlike we had been advocating in the past several decades that unless you compute the value of the unpaid goods and services, like the contributions of housewives, for instance, into the system of national account, the real face of the GDP would not be revealed. So I agree on that. Based on that, what I would again like to suggest and reiterate, because in my yesterday's speech I had elaborated briefly about the valuation of natural resources. Unless the people, local users group would not precisely understand the value of the biodiversity they have around, marketing these and conserving these would be a failure. Until now, we work on a model, we call it extractive model. So instead of going for extractive model, the time now has come to talk about the circular type of economy, circular economy. For instance, you repair, you extract, use, and you repair, don't throw it. You repair, you reuse, and recycle. So, and after this, for a while, then I have a couple of suggestions to the young researchers, because we talk a lot about, we conduct a lot of researches on air pollution, water pollution, etc. in the case of health. But what I would also see to consider is user comfort and health. This should be the title, like designing for the building as a user comfort, and then also understand the impact of the materials we use in the house. There are some kind of chemicals that you inhale if you use wrong materials in the house, and it will create a lot of health problems, health hazards. And also understand the impact of materials, and also design for healthy streets. Designing healthy streets would naturally mean like people would be interested to travel a lot, look around, and it has strong and positive impact on the health of the people, basically the older people like me. And then in some research work can be done on environmental health or environmental economics. It is about the green and blue infrastructure. These are several areas that have been left in Nepal's case. In South Asia, I think we have a poor experience. I have been an environmental economics practitioner with the assistance of the ICIMOD Global, Switzerland, and have traveled in South Asian countries at large, but I have not found a lot of good work done on these areas. There are a couple of dozens of areas in health economics as well to consider. So some discussion when you teach environmental economics at the class may be needed to explore the research areas. We talk about capital formation. Actually, the capital formation, we forget to talk about sun and earth. These are the key resources to consider in environmental economics. So these are the things that just came to my mind, so I like to share this to you both. Thank you again for your excellent presentation.
Yeah, Thank you very much, Professor Pacquiao. I couldn't agree more. These are very relevant and valuable suggestions. So there is a question from Professor Sanjay. So basically, there are, I think, at the UN level globally, there are two streams. One is science stream that called IPCC process. What they do is they engage scientists from the, all over the world to extract, synthesize what is the current state of knowledge on climate change and all kinds of things, right? So, in the science part, modeling, what happens in future, and also adaptation, what is happening, mitigation, what are the things, policies, all kinds of things. And then there's another forum called COP, which is actually the more policy level engagement, discussion, discourse, and how these challenges can be met. I think those are the global level two different types of forum. Those climate and other crises have been discussed. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. So in the interest of time, we can't take any more questions. So finally, I would like to request our Honorable Vice Chairperson, Professor Dr. Shiva Raj Adhikari, to provide your concluding remarks. Thank you.
Respected professor, panelist, and my student, if we discuss any type of research or discourse and any type of other research or discourse, it should be conclusion should be related to policy, isn't it? That's why if I talk about the policy, the conclusion of this session will be related to my policy as well. That's why I'm going to discuss about some policy and what are the policy that is related to in the 16th plan. This is the, I am going to some highlights, some initiative adopted by the Nepal, government of Nepal here. First, what are the philosophy behind the 16th plan? We need to know. First philosophy is Constitution of Nepal is the economic model. When we develop the 16th plan, we are thinking about the economic model is the constitution. Constitution economics, and if we implement any type of economic model, we need to follow the constitution. Not only the constitution, but also we are thinking nowadays in the procedure and some Karyavidhi are also the economic model. We need to think that way. Otherwise, we cannot implement our model in the real sector. One thing. And a socialist-oriented economy, if fully implement the constitution, we'll get the social-oriented economy, I think. So that's why we are thinking that way. And long-term vision, we have prosperous Nepal and happy Nepal is one of the philosophy when we design the 16th plan. And at the same time, we are thinking about the thematic approach. Because first time we are using the thematic approach in the planning process. What is the thematic approach? We can see in the here. Cannot see? In the we can see in the left side. And in the sectoral approach, there may be the parallel sectors. There is no coordination sometimes. It is difficult to linkage between them. But here we can see in the thematic approach and sector. Sector, there are different sector, and we can merge in the one line or thematic. We can create thematic approach. That is the different thing. Sector, and we can merge them, and we can interact them, and we can create the thematic. We develop that way. There are some key features in the 16th plan. We are using system thinking. Just before Madi sir and Dhimal sir, they are talking about the system approach as well. System approach, and this is the indicative plan. And we involve some of the major party involved too when we design, we formulate the 16th plan. That is also most important features, I think. And we use the concept of citizen science. That means most of the citizens' view, we apply, we gather together from different approach, and we apply this for this. We use this. And there are some feature in the thematic approach, in the system approach in the 16th plan. Yeah, because there are 13 thematic approach we identify to ensure all the sector collaborative, leading, and balanced and inclusive growth. That is our objective. And another is coordination sector. Among the synergy, we need to create the synergy. We need to create the employment. We need to create the additional output. How we can create that? By merging the different sector, we can create the additional synergy, additional output, and additional employment as well. At the same time, we need to minimize the negative impact. Negative, that means trade-off. There will be trade-off and synergies between and among the sectors we need to identify. And why system approach? Because development process is so complicated. We have to interlink each other, and there are economic, social, and environmental factors we need to identify. That's why we need we apply the system approach. At the same time, there are some features are good point in the system approach. They allow us better coordination, better collaboration among the system sector. That is why we adopt this. And again, we are talking about the creating the synergies and minimize the trade-off. This is the most important things when we develop or formulate the plan. We are thinking that way. And it will help to what are the trade-off, to identify the trade-off is so difficult. That's why if we apply the system approach, it will help us to identify the trade-off. At the same time, what are the synergies? How can create the synergy? This is also important. That's why we are applying the system approach here, or thematic approach. And there are some negative impact. We talk about the Madi sir gave some example about cement and pollution, cement factory and pollution, and some other. There are so many examples. We need to identify how to reduce that negative impact. Yeah, and there may be the possibility of cross-sectoral innovation. Yeah, and the policy coherence. Yeah, that is why we adopt the system approach. Yeah, previously we designed, there are the sector approach planning. There are different sectors. Yeah, we can see in the different plan, 12 plan, 13 plan, or maybe 15 plan, we adopt the sector approach. There are some drawbacks in the sector plan. Insufficient coordination and communication among the sectors. And there may be the creating limited synergies and missed opportunity, because if we apply the sector approach, there may be some problem. And there may be the fragmented economic activities. Yeah, that's why there are so many activities. Yeah, maybe it may be difficult to interlink among them. There are some limitations. That is why we use the thematic approach. And there are 13 thematic area. Yeah, I'm not going to discuss all the thematic area, because we already published the 16th plan. We can download easily and we can go through it. And basically in 12th, biodiversity, climate change, and green economy, this is the one theme. Yeah, there are certain theme. Yeah, 13 theme. Yeah, we are not going to discuss one by one. Yeah, actually, there is the 16th plan, there is the long-term goal. Yeah, this is the second plan. Actually, we already designed when we formulate the 15th plan, we already designed there will be the 5 years plan, 5 years plan, and that's why this is the second year plan, 5 years plan. And the good governance, social justice, and prosperity is the major main vision of this plan, and there are 3 objectives. During that, to maintain the good governance in a political, administrative, and judicial, that means we are talking about the political as well. That's it may be difficult, but we mentioned in the plan. Let us see how we can implement. And the overall strategy of 16th plan to enhance the production, productivity, and competitiveness, and to implement the sustainable development plan by strengthening the interconnection and functional capacity all level, federal, provincial, and local level. Actually, 16th plan anchoring the federalism of the country. Yeah. And at the same time, to internalize the gender mainstreaming as use of modern technology, environmental protection, and disaster risk reduction in all sectors and the dimension of development. This is also one of the major strategy here. And to implement the research-based policy and evidence program, development program here. And this is the targeted growth rate over the year. Here, I'm not going to discuss about this. Implementation of action plan. They are to prepare the implementation of the. In fact, we developed the plan based on the thematic area, but our ministries are in the sectoral ministry. How to implement that, it may be difficult. There may be sometimes some gaps between them. That's why we are going to develop the implementation plan. We are developing now. Then it will help us to how to implement this plan. How to implement that, this policy interaction and contribution of environmental climate change. We can see there are 3 documents, 16th plan, SDG document, and LDC graduation. These are the 3 documents we have. And internalization of thematic policies. We internalize these 3 documents. And then environmental and climate change, and other than the environment and climate, there will be the interaction, because we need to create the synergies and trade-off. We need to identify. And there will be the sectoral policy we'll identify. Then environmental and climate change. We will develop the program with identifying the synergies and trade-off. This will be the new thing for our plan. I think we are going to develop this way. We need to discuss more and more. Maybe your feedback and this type of discussion, this type of research will be benefit for us. We are designing this way. There are current situation. We already talked about this climate change in the Nepal. Not only Nepal, but also South Asia and the world. We already discussed about your previous section. And pollution and environmental challenges. These are the current situation of Nepal. Based on that, and in the forest and resource management issue, we can see in the good percentage in terms of percentage, but there may be some other issue in the how to harvest, how to utilize that forest resources. This is also question. And we are talking about this. We are going to design some policy in this regards as well. Then the potential for green development, there are so many issues in the current situation. I'm not going to discuss about this. There are certain challenges. Sometimes policy reform is so difficult. We can talk about the policy, but reform is so difficult. And institutional capacity, we need to develop institutional capacity, because if we talk about the thematic approach, and we need to develop the different capacity, different understanding about this, and we need to identify the synergies and trade-off. When we understand the synergies and trade-off, and then we need to improve our capacity, not only the institutional capacity, but also we need to have more research in this area. And there are some other issues, transforming the strategy. We are proposing some strategies here. And at the same time, we are proposing some major programs, but these are not sufficient. We are going to develop an implementation plan. That's why at that time we will identify what are the trade-off and what are the synergies, and how to implement from the different ministry and different department. We'll identify. These are our plan. Maybe after 1 or 2 months, we'll publish or we'll share with you. Yeah, I think yeah, this is the conclusion session. I think yeah, we have this type of plan. Yeah, maybe most of the question or research you raise, maybe in our plan we will adopt. Yeah, major thing is we need to identify the synergies and trade-off. Yeah, we are going to use this type of method in our plan process. Thank you for.
Thank you very much, sir, for the concluding remarks. So, without further ado, I guess like we are running out of time, almost like 15 minutes. So I will hand over the mic to Ankita, and thank you very much. Let us give a big round of applause to our distinguished researchers and Honorable Vice Chair. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Mani Nepal and Dr. Meghnath Dhimal, for your thoughtful presentation in this session. We sincerely appreciate the valuable insights shared on the segment's theme. Also, I would like to thank Dr. Nirmal Kumar Raut for moderating this session and our chair, Professor Dr. Shiva Raj Adhikari, for concluding remarks. Now, we have a token of love for our chair, moderator, and the presenters of this session. So, to present this token of love as a gesture of gratitude, I would like to request Head of Central Department of Economics, Tribhuvan University, Professor Dr. Ramprasad Gewali, to present the token of love to our presenters, chairs, and moderator. Chair, Professor Dr. Shiva Raj Adhikari, sir. To our presenters, Dr. Mani Nepal. Similarly, to our next presenter, Dr. Meghnath Dhimal. Lastly, to our moderator, Dr. Nirmal Kumar Raut. Thank you, Professor Dr. Ramprasad Gewali, for doing the honor.